All right, everyone. It was funny seeing Portland's mayor try to cover up his own incompetence last night on Twitter, talking about, violence will not be tolerated. We'll investigate, bring those responsible to justice and stuff. It's like, no, you won't. No, you won't. The police there probably would like to, but the city government itself prevents them from doing so. It's quite clear. Look, you get a situation where you've got actual journalists. We're not talking far-right extremists. You've got a gay Asian journalist getting brain bleed after getting beaten over the head by Antifa members. And you're acting like it's an even Stevens situation. Like the falseness with which the entire thing was presented, insofar as the legacy media even bothered talking about events, was basically a bunch of Nazis showed up and these other guys attacked the Nazis, so, it's kind of okay. But, we condemn violence, but they were Nazis, so they kind of deserved it. Meanwhile, most of the people being attacked, again, as with all instances of Antifa doing anything, were bystanders and journalists. People who were just there to either record what was going on, or who were just sort of standing around, milling around, looking at what was going on. This happened as well in Charlottesville. When Soros and the Koch brothers grandstand on that issue and say, well, we've got to stop extremism and violence, we've got to censor the online world because of extremism, most of those actually getting attacked were not even part of the initial rally that caused the problem in the first place. There were an overwhelming number of regular old liberal protesters, like fucking college kids and shit, that were the ones actually getting tear gassed and actually getting bike locked. These were not Spencer marchers, and they weren't Antifa members. They were just there. They were protesting against hate, or they were just recording and watching. And in the nature of today's world, because of the nature of the internet, a lot of times people go out with their fucking iPhones, and they'll go to a protest or a rally or whatever, and they'll record things. In some cases, these people are like, the cop block or something like that. They're trying to make sure there's no police brutality or whatever. And maybe that's why the Portland the city council and mayor decided to pull the police back. They're like, don't cause any incidents, because the hippies will come and trash the streets with their marijuana scent and their love beads and bullshit, and they'll stage a meditation and I won't be able to get to work to get sucked off by my secretary tomorrow. That's probably his fucking mentality. He should be thrown out of office. They should recall him immediately for causing the problem by not sicking the police on Antifa, which is a recognized terrorist group in certain parts of the United States and in the world at large. It's kind of obvious who Antifa is, since they show up in masks and with communist symbols and things like that. Why don't you get involved when they get violent? Now, if they just want to stand there beating bats on trash cans and yelling slogans and saying people are Nazis because they have a MAGA hat on, it's free speech. They can do what they fucking want. But, once they start throwing rocks and punches, it's different. Then you've got idiots, some of the enablers of left-wing violence within the legacy media, like a Becca Lewis or a Jared Holt, basically exonerating them of these things. Well, fascism is violence too. No, it's not. It's an ideology. A person could be fascist and never punch a single person. Likewise, a person could be like a standard liberal and go completely crazy. But Antifa aren't standard liberals. I wonder how many of these people understand. You make a decent living. You have, your salary or whatever you have. You're making median income, maybe twice the median income of something. You're doing all right. You're not living under an overpass. Antifa believes you should be killed. Or at the very least, that you should be working on a collective farm. You do realize that these are communists, correct? They call us, we're anarchists. No, you're communists. You're also extremely violent and ignorant people, usually, but, They want to say, well, fascists are going to cause problems. They're going to cause violence. They want to do violent things, so I know how to stop them. We'll do violent things in the here and now. But the thing is, most of the time, there's no fascists there for them to fight, and most of the time, it's like some fucking MAGA hat rally. Well, if you think that that's a form of fascism, I don't know what to tell you. These people, even the ethno-nats, for the most part, they're arguing against censorship and violence and things like that. I'm not getting the vibe from them that they're, going to go full stormtrooper mode. But I get that from some of the Antifa members. They seem to act in that manner. It's funny, people make jokes about Antifa super soldiers and stuff. And to see them getting enabled by people who would, if they went to... I don't see Lewis at the Antifa rally. I think she would get her skull bashed in too as bourgeois capitalist scum or a sellout or something like that. Well, yeah, and you're judged, by the way, by the company you keep. When you take to Twitter to defend violence, and say, well, this journalist deserved it because reasons. Like, there were some people, and most of them deleted the tweets because then they realized, you know, this wasn't the case. They're like, oh, look at these far-right extremist snowflakes. Ha, 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 look. It was like something about a pigeon, some joke about a pigeon pooping on the backpack, and it was like milkshake remnants. And then there were people concerned that they were going to do like acid attacks or put cement powder in the milkshakes, which didn't happen. But it is a risk. I mean, you've had you know, you look at Andy getting beaten over the head until he has a, you know, brain bleed. Or you look at that dude who got bike locked in the head, or you look at the older dude who got completely attacked by Antifa at the Portland events here. The worst thing is that once Antifa starts mobbing a person, they'll continue attacking even when the person is fleeing. Like they're cowards. They prefer to hit you when your back is turned. If you stand up to them, there have been multiple instances where they show up and they get charged by the other people, and they scatter completely. Because they don't want a head-on confrontation, because their whole idea is they don't want to be unmasked. They don't want somebody to pull their mask off, take a picture of their face, and some of these people that got violent, a couple of them didn't even have masks on. It's like, you know, if you're going to show up and do terroristic stuff, why aren't you at least making an attempt to hide your identity? I guess it's evolution in action, because the dumbest members will get picked off and put in federal prison, and it'll be a good day for America when they are. By the way, I actually disagree largely with the designation of Antifa as a terrorist movement. Declare them a gang. That's basically what they are. I know they're politically motivated. I know they try to cause fear in the local population. Most of the time when they throw like Molotovs and shit, they're throwing them through local black-owned businesses' windows or something like that. When they show up, all the other legitimate protesters should just leave. Just leave Antifa alone to just stand there and, I don't know, pound their chests like a bunch of baboons, because that's what they often resemble. And it's really funny because they'll say, like, bash the fash, like the fascists, they want to, like, harm, like, Jews and blacks. And yet if you look at the crowd of Antifa, they're almost universally a bunch of, like, white college trust fund kids with their tactical gear that they got off of the internet. It's very, very funny. Here's the thing, though. The best thing you can do with these groups, number one, is mock them. They need to be mocked. Number two, pressure needs to be put on these deep blue cities to actually allow the police to do their job. If people want to get together, protest and counter-protest, shout, I don't care if they're sitting there antagonizing each other openly. That is all allowed. It's protected under the First Amendment. They can protest. They can speak, including not nicely towards one another. Who fucking gives a shit? Once they start throwing bottles of their piss at the police, or start throwing rocks or hitting people over the head with sticks or something, that's when the police should move in. And they should mass arrest all of the Antifa members that are then part of a mob, unmask them, let their identity be known, and then put them in a jail cell. By the way, it's funny watching them call for the doxing of ICE agents as well. It's funny because they're being goaded on by the New York Times of all groups. Glowing praise for such actions by groups like the New York Times and CNN. It's very interesting. Well, what's good for the goose is good for the gander. Maybe somebody should attempt to unmask these individuals and create a database or something like that. Seems to be a common tactic. And today, you know, it's like with my name being out there something. At this point on the internet, if you're on the internet at all, or if you're in public at all, protesting, doing your civic thing, someone's going to realize who you are. There's not a whole lot that you can do about it. It's like, you know, it's a bunch of bullshit. It's very, very funny, though, to see people on the so-called center-left try to appease groups like Antifa, and they're like, well, haha, yeah, they're trying to bash the fascists. Good thing I'm not a fascist, they say right before the ball bat hits them in the nose. Because they're not targeting, the whole idea is not to target ma-Nazis or ma-fascists, because they're not really extant. Most of these rallies and protests where they show up, they have nothing to do with that. There'd be a bunch of Democratic college kids showing up, Antifa will show up to start shit. That's because they exist specifically to cause violence, that the political stuff is a veneer that they use to hide their violent tendencies. That is, they're just a violent street gang, essentially, that exists to absorb Soros money and then go out and have fun burning things up and breaking through shop windows and looting things. They're a bunch of thugs, a bunch of criminals. They use politics as a veil to excuse their behavior, as a propaganda method to try to get people to not, like, you know, try to run them down in the streets and unmask them to stop their fun and stuff like that. They've got part of the local population doesn't have a problem with them because they've convinced them that if you stand against them that you must be a fascist enabler or something. It's an excellent propaganda program. Really all it boils down to, though, is groups of, again, trust fund college kids largely. It's basically what they are. Anytime they get unmasked, who actually is it? It's not some actual impoverished commune dweller. It's not some, you know, Birkenstock wearing hippie who got, you know, Marxized or something like that. No, it's some trust fund kid. It's some dentist's child, something from, you know, the lily white suburbs. That's what Antifa actually is comprised of. Which makes sense because these people don't understand the nature of communism because they've never lived in a communist country and they've never experienced what it's like to be poor by and large. Most of these people haven't. Just a bunch of goofballs causing violence. So yeah, maybe, I mean, steps should be taken by law enforcement, but if they're being hamstrung by their city, and is the case in Portland, the police there should speak out. Why aren't we hearing more from the police? The police should take to YouTube or Twitter or something and be like, yeah, you know, we were pulled back by our illustrious mayor. Yeah, we would have liked to have saved people the trouble of being beaten on, but yeah, we weren't allowed to. He told us to stay back 10 yards because otherwise we might get attacked and that would cost more to the city's pension program or something. And that's basically what it's about. It's follow the money. That's about all. Peace out.